There are four phrases that are stopping your growth, stopping your potential, stopping your momentum. And we're talking about them all this week on the Dallas Daily Show, coming at you from the Neighborhood Loan Studio. Today, we're going to talk about that second phrase. Let's go ahead and get into it. Yesterday, we talked about this idea, when I, then I, right? As though some level of happiness, some gap of happiness you're attaining is being missed because you're not quite deserving of it yet. That's the first phrase that can really stop your personal growth or can keep you stuck and trapped in the loop, in the cycle of trigger beliefs and behaviors. Here's the second phrase. The second phrase is, if only I hadn't blank. If only I hadn't done this. If only I hadn't done that. Shoot, did I miss the boat somewhere? If only I hadn't done. Can you hear the regret? Can you hear the fear of what could have been, what maybe should have been, right? What might have been. And maybe that's the way you say it. Again, I said in the previous video here, you may not say it the exact way, but you might say it in some way like this. So if only I hadn't done this, or maybe you'll say phrases like, I should have. I could have done it this way. I could have done it better. If only I had done it this way. If only I hadn't. My friends, life is too short for us to live in regret. Maybe there's a place in your life where you've thought that phrase over and over again, or maybe that phrase of regret, if only I hadn't, or I should have, or I could have. Maybe that's what's keeping you stuck in old beliefs and old behaviors and old habits and old practices and old emotions. You don't have to live with regret. You don't have to live with what could have been or what you think should have been. This was a phrase for me that was huge for the longest time. And when I began rewriting my programming, when I began rewriting a lot of the scripts that played, we talked on the recent Mind Shift episode in our Midweek Mind Shift series, we talked about this idea of auto-suggestion. I had so many could have, should have, if only I hadn't scripts. If only I hadn't made this mistake, maybe I'd be on a different trajectory. Well, sure. That might absolutely be 100% true. Maybe that's you. Maybe you shouldn't have made some of the decisions you made. I can think of, I don't know, a few dozen that I've done over my life that I'm like, man, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. If only I had done that choice instead. And I found myself caught in loops of regret for way, way too long. A huge part of my depression. And you've heard me talk about that on previous episodes. A huge part of my depression was this what could have been, what should have been, what might have been, if only I hadn't done blank, right? If only I hadn't. So I want you to think about in your own life really quickly. Just take a moment right now as you're driving or wherever you're listening to the pod here. Think about places in your past where you've said that phrase, and it's usually, P.S., it's usually preceded with some kind of guttural sigh or emotional aghast. Can we say aghast? I'm aghast at that, right? It's usually preceded by, if only I had, or, I wish I hadn't done this, right? If only I hadn't done this, if only I should have done this instead. Right? It's usually a wince, a sigh, a gasp, and a lass. That's usually the emotion that precedes it. So right now in your own mind, just think to yourself, where is it that I have lived in the regret a little too long? I've stayed in the lane of pain, right? Where's that moment for you? Now I want you to just breathe and release that. It is so important for you and I to know that living with the pain of the past is one of the greatest ways that's going to keep us from embracing the future. There's a future version of you out here. We talk about it all the time on this podcast in the Future You 5-Day Challenge. We talk about it in the Midweek Mind Shift series. There is a future version of you, the idealized version of you that is waiting for you to become that person. It's waiting maybe 3 years or 5 years from now, or heck, just a year. That's like, man, if you can just visualize and emotionalize and become me, that's an amazing, heroic version of yourself that's calling you, drawing you. But if we're stuck in the if only I hadn't belief, or the regrets of I should have, I could have, if only I would have, it's time to release that regret. It's time to quit playing that script over and over and over again. And it's time to let go so that you can grow into who you're becoming. So of the 4 phrases that stop your growth, this one is huge. This is the one that keeps you anchored to the past through the power of regret. And it's time to release it so that you can take hold of the new version of you. That's it. That's all I got for you today, my friends. Go out there and have a championship day.
Thanks for listening to my dad's podcast. For more tools, go to dallasdailyshow.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.